editing right now, and I just want to let you know before you get into this video, the volume is going to be a little bit higher than it normally would be because I'm soft speaking, and at certain points throughout the video I start like going off on subjects and I lose like the vocal control. So it's not that I get louder or start speaking in my normal tone, it's just like a little bit less ASMR-y. So I recommend keeping your volume down a little bit if you're trying to like genuinely super relax, just because it's a little louder than normal, but I know some people like that, so maybe it'll be good. Just something different, just a warning. Okay, let's get into it. Hi guys, it's Bunny. Welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about the boys and Gen V and Invincible, as I promised, I think a while ago. And originally my plan was to do it while I was drawing and to like run a voiceover over the video of me drawing, because I talk a lot about the fact that I'm an artist, but I haven't really shown a lot of my art on this channel, partly because drawing is like my job, and I've been drawing so much lately, and it's really exhausting. And I thought about drawing, I wanted to draw like Kimiko maybe, but like a weird version of her, not that she's not already weird, but like an even weirder version, like in my kind of artistic style, which I know a lot of people tell me is like super at odds with the way that I look. Like I just had a client recently who was like, I can't believe that you look the way you look, but you draw the stuff you draw. And I realized I haven't really like demonstrated, or I haven't really shown you guys any of my art on here, or I've shown a little bit, but not a ton. But I do have 2 Instagrams where I post my art. I have my tattoo, like my business page, that's for my job. That's like where I get all like 90% of my clients. And then I have also like another personal Instagram where like I sometimes post like my costumes and the clothes that I alter and stuff, and like sculptural stuff. And I do plan on making a video soon because I want to show you guys all of the clothing that I've like DIY'd or sewn or like upgraded recently, because it is something that I've become like increasingly passionate about. I just realized I have like a little Finn from Adventure Time and a Skelly, like a social distortion like Skelly, and I knocked him over because I closed the window because it's loud outside. But either way, what I was saying was I'm super burnt out on drawing, and I had promised that I would talk about the shows, so I'm just gonna talk about them and do my makeup, because I have to do my makeup anyway. I don't have to, but I want to, so that's what we're gonna do. And it's hot, really, like as hell right now. Like I lost like my train of thought like mid-sentence because it's so hot, and I've been noticing lately that like the heat has been like frying my brain. And I've been like so forgetful, and like my car is struggling. My husband's car started smoking the other day on our way to see Chris Stapleton. It was like a whole thing. Also, my hair does this because I don't wash my hair all that often because I have really coarse hair, and so the more I wash it, the like unhealthier it gets and the more I lose. And it's also bleached, and if you have like really dark natural hair and then you bleach it, you probably know like how brassy and orange it can get if you wash it too often. So I try not to wash it that much, but that means that I end up with like it just stands on its own, like it does whatever it wants a lot. So that's what's happening there. But yeah, so I will talk about the shows. I don't have any thesis really. I'm just gonna ramble. I haven't put a ton of thought into this, if any. And I know that the boys and Invincible can be like kind of contentious issues. What I mean by that is I know that they're very beloved shows that a lot of people like, especially a lot of like boys really love, and A lot of people have a lot of thoughts and are very passionate about it. And I was a film major in college, so I know how passionate some people can get about media, especially if they perceive someone as like not understanding it or having a different interpretation of it. So I just want to say, like, I didn't put a ton of thought into this. When I first saw the first season of The Boys and then the first season of Invincible, I did think about them through like a media analysis lens, but I wasn't writing essays about it, you know what I mean? So it's not like I have any kind of real investment in my ideas about the shows. I just figured I'd talk about it because I had mentioned that I really like the shows and that I was thinking about talking about them, and people seemed interested in that. So that's what I'm gonna do. I just realized I don't have a mirror. I got everything ready and forgot the mirror. Where the hell is the mirror? I have a bunch of them, but I'm just gonna grab the nearest one. So my point was that if you don't agree with what I'm saying, that's fine. I didn't really think about it all that much. So I don't really have any arguments to make. I figured I'd just ramble about them. I would just put my sunscreen on, and then this is just my chapstick. I've been using these same chapsticks since college, and they might be expired, but I haven't had any kind of like chemical burns, but they are just the chapstick brand, but they're like the duos that you like pop into each other. I have so many of them because I got them. I think I talked about this before. So a woman gave me like a whole shopping cart full of them for free, and I was like, all right, I love chapstick, so pop off, sis. Okay. So The Boys. So I'm watching the new season right now, and I remember the first season. So here's my thing. I'm gonna probably start rambling and ranting a little bit right now, and I'm trying not to get too like in my feelings about it, but I have this thing about TV. The state of TV now really bothers me. I started falling in love with TV when I was like 16, 17. My parents got Netflix, and I watched like Mad Men, and I watched a bunch of shows with them that were really, really good. They had like a profound effect on me throughout my life, and I'll never forget a lot of the content that I watched with them. The one thing I'll say about those shows, like across the board, is back in the day, I feel like shows knew like that you had to get to the point pretty quickly, because the way that it works is like because I worked in the industry for like a little bit. I was never high up, but I did do coverage for agents and production companies, like as like an intern, and then like a really not even an employee, like a low level contractor. So I'm by no means saying that I'm like an expert, but I did do this work. If someone gives you a pilot to read, you have to assess whether or not you think that this could be a show that people really like, but you only get to read the pilot. You don't get to watch the first season. You don't get to watch the first 4 episodes. You get to read the pilot, and based on that, you have to decide whether or not you think this show is good enough to go to production. So for me, because I don't have much time, like I'm sure that a lot of you are in the same boat as me. We're busy. A lot of us are working multiple jobs. I'm not right now, personally, but I've thought about it. But a lot of us right now in this economy are super busy. We have a lot going on. We have long commutes. We're working multiple jobs. Everyone's tired. The last thing you want to do is have to slog through like 3 episodes of a show, or even like a whole season or 2 of a show before you decide, I'm gonna watch the show, right? I like this show. So for me, the worst thing you can say to me when recommending a show is you just have to get through the first few episodes, or you just have to get through the first few seasons. I'm sorry. If you tell me that I have to get through the first few seasons before a show gets good, I'm never gonna watch that show. Unless it's something I can jump into, you know? Like if it's a show where I can start season 3, and you say season 3 is really good, then sure, I'll start at season 3. But if you tell me like you have to like slog through multiple episodes, which are like 20 to 40, 50, 60 minutes long these days. Like, my husband watches the House of Dragons show. I never got into Game of Thrones, and this is an example for me of like a show that I could just not get into, and everyone told me to keep giving it chances. I gave that show so many goddamn chances, you guys, and I'm sorry if that upsets you. I don't have to like everything that you like. I'm a fantasy person. Like, I love fantasy. That show there were so many things about it that I didn't like, and there were so many things about it that I just didn't find interesting. So I just stopped watching it because I don't have time. I don't have time to be bored and miserable while I'm watching TV, which is supposed to be like an outlet, like a relaxing outlet for me. So, as someone who has like experience working in the industry and like assessing shows based on like 20 to 40 minutes worth of script, essentially, for me, if you don't grab me within that first episode, I'm not gonna continue to watch the show. I don't care. Like, that's why I like movies. Like, at least with a movie, like, even if it's not great, you're only committing to like 90 minutes to 2 hours. With a show, like, especially if it's a show with like 45-minute episodes, if you watch 2 episodes, that's already what, like, I just realized how terrible at math I am. That's already 90 minutes. That's already like a whole movie. So like, if I have to get to episode 7 before a show picks up, that's like watching 2.5 movies that I don't like before it gets good. If a movie came out and it sucked, and then a sequel came out and it also sucked, you think I'm gonna watch the third one? I'm not gonna watch the third one. Are you crazy? Like, get out of there. Sorry if I sound like a little flippant or dismissive or like angry, but I'm really passionate about this. This used to be like my whole life, you know? Like, I used to want to write and make films, and I never did. I don't know if I would have made it or not. I never really tried that hard because I realized I didn't want to work in the industry because I live in LA. I saw firsthand how it's like to like work in the industry, and the thing for me is like, if I'm going to be in an environment where I'm not going to be treated like a person, I'm not interested. So for me, it wasn't worth it. And I just found things that I was more passionate about. I would have stuck with it if I didn't find anything that I was more passionate about, but here we are. Either way, like I said, I'm not saying I'm an expert, and I'm not saying that my opinion has more value. Game of Thrones is like one of the best shows. Like, everyone loves Game of Thrones. So I'm not saying that like I'm correct or that my opinion is better than yours. What I am saying is that, like, for me, I did not want to watch that show, and everyone kept trying to convince me that I was wrong. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, it's not gonna, I don't care if it gets good after episode 8. I'm not gonna watch 7 episodes that suck, to me, in my opinion. Does that make sense? Oh man, I feel like people are gonna be so triggered. But I'm just trying to be honest about my process, you know? So anyway, there's that. The point of saying all of this is that when I watched season 1 of The Boys, or not even season 1, when I watched episode 1 of The Boys, that show grabbed me within the first 5 minutes. Like, 5 minutes in, I was like, I don't care what happens, I'm along for the ride. And obviously, like, at any point, you can fall off, you can stop watching a show. It's happened to me a bunch of times where, like, I really like a show, but then it starts to slow down. I feel like usually that happens after like a few seasons, sometimes like around about like season 3 or 4. Sometimes things start to like go downhill. I don't know if I feel like that's happening with The Boys, but I definitely feel like my favorite season was season 1, and then my second favorite season, weirdly, was season 3, and season 2 for me kind of like hit a dip. But we'll see where this season goes. Either way, I'm trying not to give spoilers, although the show's been out for a while. So if you haven't watched season 1 by now, are you going to? I don't know. You don't have to. You could watch the first episode and be like, I hate this. And I've talked to lots of people who told me that they stopped watching it because it was too gory for them. And I love gore, but it has to be like, I don't know, it has to be a certain style. Like, if it's gratuitous, that's fine, as long as it's like having fun with it and camp with it instead of like trying to be serious with it. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna get too weird, You gotta get weird, you know what I mean? I'm gonna keep saying you know what I mean because I want to confirm that you know what I mean, even though I don't know if like you know what I mean. Either way, my point is that I really, really love the show The Boys. I was so grabbed by the first, like, honestly, the first season really, really got me because I do think that it was a response to, like, an oversaturation of, like, Marvel supremacy, I guess, in a way. And, like, here's my thing with the Marvel TV. Like, I loved some of the early Marvel movies. And I don't know what they call it, phase one, like where it ended with Endgame. I was invested in that. I think part of the reason I was so invested in it was because my husband is like a huge comic book fan and reads like all the Marvel comic books, so he knew like all the lore. He kind of knew what was going to happen. He was super into it. And right around the time when like phase one was coming to an end, it was before all the shows were on Disney Plus and stuff, but right around that time he and I had like kind of just started dating, so we spent a lot of time like going to see the new Marvel movies as they came out, and so I have a lot of like happy and positive memories associated with those movies. But I'm not gonna lie, with the exception of like a handful of the earlier ones, there's not too many of them that I want to rewatch that much, even though I do really like superhero movies. Personally, I was a big fan of Batman growing up, and the Nolan Batmans to me were like really great because they showed this like gritty, grimy, dark side of superheroism, you know, and it felt really authentic to me. And Batman, I think, feels authentic to me because he theoretically he could exist. And so the isolated Batman shows, or sorry, not shows, the movies, the Nolan movies, theoretically could happen. And so that's why I really vibe with those movies. And I like the grittiness and the sort of film noir-esque like vibe, and he cast like amazing people. Like you're gonna hit me with like Heath Ledger, and then you're gonna hit me with Tom Hardy and Marion Cotillard. Like you of course I'm gonna like it. I mean, they were really, really beautiful. The Marvel movies to me were way more like Technicolor, fun, you know, poppy, you know, more humor. It's a lot more like feel good payoff at the end, which I think it's great and it's really marketable to kids and adults alike, and I really appreciate that. But it got really tiring for me, and then once they made the deal with Disney, I got so sick of it. I felt like, you know, the quality really went down. The budget was obviously just like not there anymore. I haven't watched many of the shows, including like the Star Wars shows on Disney Plus, because we tried them, and like I watched the first like 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, but the only thing keeping me invested was the Baby Yoda, and also I don't think I've shown my Baby Yoda. I might have to show. Have I shown him? I think I showed him once. I'll show him again maybe. But then also Pedro Pascal was like weirdly sexy, even though we couldn't see his face. I don't know. But apart from that, I really just there wasn't a lot of magic in it for me. And I really felt like I just got really sick of it. I wasn't invested in it. Obviously, I know a lot of people criticize it for like fan service and stuff like that. I couldn't speak to that. All I know is that it became a very obvious cash grab, and I think it's just like classic capitalism ruining art. I'm also not gonna lie, I just don't think it's authentic to how things would actually play out in the real world if there were superheroes, which is totally fine. Not everything has to be like realistic, and I think we are kind of, as a society, like I think we've almost like moved past wanting like super heavy realistic depictions of life because things are so dire now that people just want to escape. And so people are definitely leaning more into like camp and poppy things and exciting things. But I think that the Nolan Batman movies came at a perfect time because they came like during an era where we were leaning into like the dark side of life and reality and grittiness and darkness, and everyone was on Tumblr posting about how sad they were. You remember? If you were there, you might remember. Either way, I think The Boys came at a really great time because it came right in like the peak of Marvel. And it really was such a great response to like that oversaturated superhero hysteria almost, like, or like mania, the superhero mania, you know? And I think it was such a like perfect response. It was like, you think superheroes are cool? Let me show you what they'd really be like if they existed. And I think it's really accurate. I think that, having Supes be like, a realistic, if they existed, I do think that there's a lot of potential for them to like abuse their power and lean into darkness. And I do think it's a metaphor for the people who benefit the most from capitalism and who have certain privileges that allow them to get ahead. It's a metaphor for exploitation. It's a metaphor for like child fame and fame in general and power and wealth. And it's like really brilliant. I know it's based on a comic. My dog is barking. I'm really hoping that he's gonna stop barking. I am aware that there's a comic book. I'm not gonna talk about the comic book because it's very different from the show. I understand there's a lot of like crossover, but it's like ideologically quite different. I talked about the comic book already in my comic book video. Also, my dog is chewing his bone really loud, so hopefully that's not going to be annoying. But regardless, my point is like, I'm not going to talk about the comic book or reference that really at all. All I'm saying is that I do think that The Boys is like really on the nose commentary, and I really like it and appreciate it, but I know that it's like intentionally really overt. Like Billy Butcher is such a caricature. Homelander is like such an obvious metaphor for like, super radical right-wing ideology. There's so many, like, they make very direct current pop culture references. The most recent not episode, but the current series references a lot of things that like are happening kind of now, and I like that because I think it really roots itself in a place in time. I know that that can be a detriment to shows sometimes because it dates them and makes them less accessible going forward. But I think that, honestly, I think that Seth Rogen isn't really concerned about cultural impact going forward. I think he's just concerned about making a show that people enjoy now. And I appreciate that because I think that at least like, I know he knows his audience. And even if it's like sometimes a little like almost ham-fisted, I still really like the show. I haven't been turned off by it yet. And even when it's clunky or silly, I'm still along for the ride. The Boys is one of those shows that I'm 100% bought in. I don't think that there's something about watching that universe that is like oddly comforting to me. I don't know why, because it's like horrible. But it's fun, it's funny. I've loved to see the character development. I'm really loving Huey this season. I think he's showing a tremendous amount of growth. I like Starlight. I'm very, very interested to see like where they go with her character because it could go really bad. And Homelander makes me feel sick. But he's a really, really incredible character. I really like him as a villain. I'm hoping that he'll be able to stand the test of time as a formidable villain. Like, he'll be able to continue to grow and become increasingly sinister, because one of the things about Homelander is he's not actually the fact he's formidable, not because he's necessarily the strongest or because he's unbeatable necessarily, because it has been proven that like he can fail and he is fallible. It's mostly just like the way that he behaves, and then also the way that they tap into this almost like, to some degree, like you kind of get it, like you kind of get why he's like that. It just doesn't make him any less evil. And I think that the actor is brilliant, and terrifying. If I saw him in real life, I'd be so scared. And I know he said that like bothers him, but like if you're gonna play a role like Homelander, like that's all you're known for, people are gonna be like scared of you. But I do still feel like his feelings are valid. I did watch Gen V, and I'm not gonna lie, someone had asked me actually what my thoughts were on Gen V. I really liked it. I feel like Gen V was one of those shows that for me was kind of a slow burn. I do really enjoy shows that are set in colleges because I went to college, and so the experience feels somewhat relatable to me. And I remember when I was going to college, or like the first year I was in college, a lot of media came out about going to college. Like I never ended up publishing it, but I had made a video before where I was talking about Monsters University because I actually have an MU hat. It's up on my, can you see it? It's over here. I bought that at Disney, and I bought it in part because my dad loved the movie Monsters Inc., and so I used to watch it with him when I was a kid, and I was like so obsessed with it. And I still, whenever I watch it, I can still hear my dad laughing at like the parts that he found funny. Like without fail, he'd always laugh at the same jokes. He's still alive, by the way. I just don't see him that often, so I feel like nostalgic when I think about it. But when right around when, so like Monsters Inc. came out when I was like, I think 5, 6, and then when I went to college was right around the time Monsters University came out, so it was like perfect because I love Monsters University. I almost like it more than Monsters Inc., but I think it's because of the time and place I was at. So it really resonated with me, and I think ever since, like, and I think there was a couple other shows that were like similar because I felt like that was made for me. It was like, we release this when you're a kid, and then when you go to college, we're going to release the same characters, but they're going to go to college. It just felt like it was like made for my generation, and I'm a Gen Z millennial cusper. I'm 96, so I feel like we're often like completely overlooked in conversations because it's like Gen Z is like early 20s and millennials are like mid 30s, and I'm like, hello. Hello. So anyway, I really like Gen V because of the setting. It felt like something I could relate to, but it was much more of a slow burn for me. It did not hit me as hard. Like, it didn't slap me in the face nearly as much. I felt like they did kind of try to do the same model with the boys, like where it opens on this like holy shit moment, but it didn't hit as much for me because it's like, well, yeah, I kind of like, I mean, I've seen The Boys. At that point, I've seen 3 seasons of it, I think. So I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I get it. I did really like it, though. It grew on me. And I didn't like the end. I'm not a big fan of, like, this is my other beef with TV. I'm not a big fan of, like, extreme cliffhanger endings where, like, nothing is resolved. And part of the reason for that is because I think too many shows bank on the idea that they're going to be renewed, even though it's, like, it's a gamble. You never really know if a show is going to be renewed or not. And I'm not a big fan of shows that bank on that because at the end of the day, regardless of whether you can continue to tell the story or not, our story should have a beginning, middle, and end. And if it, like, I think leaving some stuff open-ended is obviously important so that you have somewhere to go with the following season, but you should resolve, at least 50% needs to be resolved by the end of a season. I just, like, cannot stand it when a show comes to an end and it's just, like, nothing is resolved. And you're just like, okay, like, what if you get canceled? Then you never told your story. It's bad storytelling. Stories should have a beginning, middle, and end. They should have, like, a cohesive plot. So it bothers the hell out of me when shows bank on the fact that they're going to get renewed because, like, you don't know that. How do you know? So I really don't like that. Personally, I think that even if you know you're going to get renewed, you should still have, like, some kind of resolution. It's just, honestly, it's annoying. It's lazy to me. I think it's irresponsible. It really bothers me. So, I felt like Gen V resolved some things, and I understand that it wasn't just an isolated show, that it played into the Boys universe, and so the assumption is that when the new season of The Boys come out, you're gonna see some fallout from the Gen V show, and we did. And so I'm not super upset about it, but personally, like, even though it's a spin-off, I would still like to see it standing on its own a little bit better because, frankly, there's so many spin-offs and world-building shows now to the point where, like, I don't even want to watch anything Marvel or Star Wars related because, like, especially with Marvel, it's like you have to watch all these shows to understand what the hell is going on. I'm not gonna watch the bad ones. I don't watch any of them, but I tried and they were bad. Like, I'm not gonna watch all of them. So I need, like, I can't be expected to, like, carry all of this information in my head. Just tell me a damn story. I really like the way that in the UK, my parents are from the UK, so I grew up watching a lot of shows from the UK, and they a lot of the time would do like mini series, so it's like 6 episodes and then it's done, or it's like 2 seasons then it's done. I really like that. I know that a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people want like longer series. Oh my god. I need to move this. A lot of people want like longer series, longer episodes, drag it out. I don't like that. There's so much filler. I can't stand it, honestly. When my husband was watching the House of Dragon show, I couldn't believe that one of the episodes was like, I think he said it was an hour and 15, so it's like 75 minutes long. That's like almost a movie. And you know it's not going to be as like as a movie, because they have that and then 10 other opportunities to like tell the story. And I was watching it with him and I was like, I'm sorry, there's just like so much filler. There's so much that's like boring. Like, get to the point. Even if I was reading a book, it wouldn't take this long. My god, so frustrating. And I'm like, I don't think it's that I have brain rot from instant gratification. Like, I'm not a huge fan of short form content either. I sat and watched the entire 4 hours of Jenny Nicholson's most recent Star Wars hotel video because I was engaged the whole time. It was interesting. But if she'd made that into like a 10-hour series, I probably wouldn't have watched. Well, I definitely would have watched the whole thing, but I would have watched it like while I was doing other things. But no, I sat and watched all 4 hours. I don't know what that says about me, but the point I'm making is that it's not that I like gravitate towards short form content. I love a long video. I love a long movie. I even will watch like all 6 episodes of a show as long as you just move. Like, the pacing should be at least moderate. If you're gonna drag everything out, I don't want to watch it. That's kind of why I like The Boys. I don't think that they drag things out. I do think that they get a little weird and sometimes things get confusing and they try to go and do little things over here, but I do feel at the end of the day like everything kind of culminates in this larger plot, and I really appreciate that. And they don't drag it out too much and the episodes are not too long. I appreciate that. So The Boys is super fun. I'm still really into it. I'm not loving this season yet, but I'm gonna give it time. I'm not at the point where I'm like ready to be done with it. Now I want to talk about Invincible. I don't know how many people I'm gonna piss off with this. Hopefully, because it's ASMR, if you were getting pissed off by the things I was saying, you just like turned off the video. But I remember the way that Invincible. So here's what happened. So my husband and I were not living together when Invincible season 1 came out. Wait, were we? No, we weren't. And I remember that he's like, because he's a comic book guy, he watched the first episode and then he told me, I really like the show, I'd like to watch it together. Do you want to watch the first episode? And I had no idea what it was, but he told me, he's like, it's Seth Rogen again, it's superheroes, but it's animated. And I was like, yeah, sure, like, why not? So we watched it, and like The Boys, which hooked me within the first 5 minutes, Invincible hooked me at the end of the first episode, because I was watching the first episode and I was like, this is corny as hell. Like, I get it if you're really into like old comic book shows, which I was when I was a kid. I liked the Batman shows a lot. I don't know what else I watched. I liked Batman, like mostly like the Batman movies and the Batman shows a lot. But I was watching the first episode of Invincible and I was like, this is corny. Like, what are we doing here? And then I feel like my eyes need more. They're just really pale. We're gonna go darker with it. And then that last scene of the first episode, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm in. Because they just went there. Like, it went from being, it really was such a callback to like the nostalgia of old comic book shows in a way that felt, they really tapped into that like corniness and like the campiness and the silliness. And I was like, oh god, like, are they just really just gonna genuinely try to do like an authentic reboot of like an old school show? Because like I could be into that, but I don't know if that's like gonna be my thing. Not that I think there's anything wrong with that, because I can see the appeal. It just, I was concerned. But then they just really went there at the end of that episode. They just really, really went there. Like I said, I'm trying not to spoil things, but I really was bought in after that, and I've been really enjoying it ever since. I do understand with Invincible, the pacing is a little different. It's an animated show. They even had like meta jokes about the fact that people were complaining that they weren't releasing content fast enough because it takes so long to do animation well, and I do really love the kind of like old school style of the animation. I don't love all of their costumes, but I understand that it's supposed to be this, like, you know, reference to old school comic books. So I really like that. So I wasn't against it. I have no idea what the hell is going on with my hair right now. And so I was bought in with the corniness of it. I will say the pacing of the show sometimes is a little, it's not that it's slow, I just think sometimes it gets a little off track. But I don't dislike that. I like that I'm invested in the characters, and I love the voice acting, especially J.K. Simmons. I mean, when has he ever been bad? Like, let's be honest. He's carried a lot of stuff. But I thought it was really, like, well done. I like that it's gory. I actually think that animated gore is way more visceral and hits me harder than, like, real gore, because the real gore is obviously like either like CGI or it's practical effects, but the animated gore is just so much, like, it's, you see so much and you're just like, oh. So animated gore really gets me, and so that's why I think Invincible like really like hooked me, because I was like, oh man, they're really doing that. And I really liked it. I like that Mark is so young. I think that it taps into a different, completely different kind of vibe than the boys, because the boys, everyone kind of sucks, like even the people that don't suck kind of suck. But in Invincible, like, there's characters that are genuine and pure that we want to root for, you know what I mean? Like, you want to root for them, and it's really it's really frustrating to try to root for them because of how much horrible stuff happens like throughout that show. And I'm really struggling with this hair right now. I'm gonna get it fixed next week, so like we should be good. But I really, really feel that I think the issue with Invincible is that the formula is starting to feel maybe tired. I think that it felt like there was a novelty to it at first. I really liked that it was so unique and that it went in this direction that I hadn't really seen a show go in. I never really see anyone attempting. I don't know what's happening right now. I'm gonna take this out. That was a bad idea. I never really seen anyone attempting what they were attempting with this show, and so it was like really new to see something like that. And then now I feel like there is a little bit of a resurgence of animated shows. I mean, there's always been animated shows for the people, like the real ones, the people who are really invested in them, but I was never super invested in them, except for when I was a kid. So I appreciated Invincible because I felt like it was a gateway for me back into shows like that. So I've been watching the new X-Men show that I think just ended. I was really skeptical at first, and my husband was watching it, and I started watching it with him, and I was like, oh, this is so good, dude. So I think, honestly, I think Invincible has more potential than The Boys. I don't know how much more The Boys can do that it hasn't already done. I think Invincible has potential to go somewhere, but it just hasn't since season 1, and I'd like to see it go somewhere more extreme, but I understand the limitations with the animation, how hard it can be to produce and how much time it takes, so it just might be a lot harder to attempt to go, do something crazy with the plot or really flip the world on its head. I could see that would be much bigger of an undertaking, but I just think that Invincible has a lot more potential to be fun with it and get crazy with it. And I'd like to see that because, like, I'm a little tired of Mark just being like, oh, I'm so sad and I wish I wasn't super, but I have to protect people. Like, I'm kind of like over it at this point, and I want to see him like grow and change. You know, I know he's grown in the sense that he's grown from like a boy into a man, but I want to see him like reckon with his powers more, and I'm assuming that they'll do that. But I would have liked to see more of that this past season. There's obviously like a lot of times when people die but then they're not actually dead, which is like fine, but also like I don't know. Like, I kind of wish that like there was more like this person's dead. That's like a plot point. Like now we have to move forward from that. Which in the boys, I think when people die, they just be dead. You know what I mean? They just die. Um, but I really like Invincible too. I just think I get more excited about The Boys. Like when there's a new episode of The Boys, I'm like really, even if I feel like it's gonna be trash, I just still get excited. I love Billy Butcher, you guys. I know he's like mad annoying. But as a person who grew up in an English family, or like, well, my parents are English and Scottish, but like I grew up with a lot of English media and content, and his accent is like so extreme. But I still really vibe with him. I just feel like I get him. I just know men like that. I know a lot of men like that, and so I'm just sort of like, yeah, I know a Billy Butcher. I know several Billy Butchers. Maybe not as crazy, but I still really like him. But I think I've rambled a lot, and hopefully I haven't pissed any people off too much. If you don't agree with me, I mean, I don't think I made any like super resolute statements. I did make some. I had some opinions. But if you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. Obviously, like we all have different things that we like. That's the beauty of the world. You know, I'm an artist by trade, so I know firsthand that some people just aren't gonna F with the stuff that you F with. You know, a lot of people don't really like my art, and they'll tell me that, and that's totally fine. I get it. It's not for everyone. If you want to see it, I'll link my Instagrams below. And I'm gonna continue to watch this season of The Boys. Hopefully there'll be another season of Gen V at some point, but I don't really know. We'll see at the end of the season of The Boys. Let me know your thoughts on these shows, and also like if you feel the need to comment your own favorite TV shows, please let me know. Please don't tell me to watch Game of Thrones. Please don't tell me to watch Game of Thrones. Trust me, I've heard it all. I've tried. It's not for me. And that's okay. That's okay. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I have you. Oh, oh my God. I hope you have a wonderful day.